So in this video we're going to finish the model of the rockfish and also we're going to prepare it for texturing. I'm going to start by going to the shader tree, just expand the render layer, and I want to delete the matte cap shader because we don't need that anymore. And I want to start with the gill area. Now at the moment these horns have no back to them. So in vert mode I'm just going to select these points and hit P to create a polygon. I need to do the same here, so I can just select two in this case and hit the up arrow to expand the selection. And then hit P. Now if we come to mesh edit, run edge slice, and we'll bring an edge from that point to the middle of the polygon and then to the middle of that edge. Hold down shift, bring an edge from that point to that point, hold down shift again, bring an edge across there, hold down shift again, we'll bring an edge from that point to the middle of that edge. Now I don't want to bring this edge all the way through the body of the fish, so what I'm going to do, bring it to the middle of that polygon and then to that point, hold down shift, and then we'll bring a point from there all the way down through here to this horn, bring the edge to that corner, hold down shift, bring an edge from there to the middle of that edge and then to there. So if we hit shift tab, you see those horns make more sense now. If we look underneath them, they're a bit flat at the bottom, so what I'm going to do is hit T for element move. I'm just going to pull that edge down to make them a little more rounded and do the same over here. And another thing is if we look at the side and I remove the wireframe, you can see that this horn at the bottom flows really nicely into the gill, but this one on the top has a little lump in it, and that's to do with the shape of the polygons. So I bring back the wireframe, you can see how these polygons flow and then they stop and it kind of flows around the back of it. So to change the flow, get it to smoothly flow into the gill, I'm going to go to edge mode, select this edge and hit V. That spins the edge round. Now if I remove the wireframe, you can see how that blends into the gill. So now for the gills themselves, so in edge mode I'm going to double click on that edge to select the edge loop, hit Z for edge extend, click and drag in the viewport, so I'll move it up on the Y and the Z, and then I'll grab the red handle and move it across on the X slightly, hit R and we'll scale it, hit Z again, move it across and in, and then scale it again. Then double click on this edge loop for the other gill, hit Z again, move it across, back on the Z, then scale it, hit Z again, click and drag, move it across and scale it again. And when you hit shift tab, we've now got gills. Now you might find, like I have, that these gills are actually a little bit too far apart. So I'm going to hit shift tab, hit T for element move, and I just want to bring these closer together and make a smoother curve into the gill. So you can see that feels a lot smoother now. Now for the final gill, this is a little more complicated because of how it links into the mouth. So what we're going to do, hit shift tab, and in polygon mode I'm just going to select these polygons, to there, Control C to copy, we'll go to a new mesh layer and Control V to paste, then hit F to flip the polygons, and then if you go to the deform tab and run the push tool, click in the viewport and then move the handle and just bring those polygons down because they're going to start to form the inside of the gill. And when you're happy with that, drop the tool, Control X to cut, Control V to paste, and then in edge mode select two edges and hit the up arrow to expand the selection to there. Then come over to this side, hold down shift, select two edges on the outside of the gill and hit the up arrow. to there, then go to the duplicate tab and run the bridge tool. So at the moment the hole from the gill to the mouth is continuous and we need to split it up. So I'm going to select two edges there, hold down shift and select two edges there and run the bridge tool. And now if I hit shift tab, double click on that edge, we've now got a continuous loop in that gill. So with that edge loop selected, hit shift tab, and like we did with the other gills, we'll hit Z for edge extend, extend that edge loop forward, move it back on the X, and then scale it. So like we did with the other gills, you might want to use element move just to close the gap slightly, but now that we've got those gills in place, we can mirror the whole fish. So I'm going to hit shift tab, and in edge mode I'll select two edges there, hold down shift and hit the up arrow until that goes all the way around the fish to the mouth there, and I'm going to hold down control and just deselect those two edges. Now we need to make sure those edges are on the center line. So I'm going to vertex set position, I want the value to be 0 and the axis to be X, click OK, deselect everything by clicking in the viewport, and then if we go to duplicate, mirror, we'll set an origin action center, click in the viewport and set the axis to X. Spacebar, drop the tool, and then we can just double click in that gap and hit P to close it. So now if we hit shift tab and remove the wireframe, you can see that some of the details on the head are a little bit soft. For example, the horns are on the top of the head and also some of the details around the eye. So what we need to do is bring back the wireframe, shift tab again, we'll turn symmetry on the X, and we just need to tighten everything up. So I'm going to hit T, and for this line running along the top of the head, I'm just going to bring these edge loops closer together. And around the eye, I might just want to bring these back a little bit on the top of the eyebrow, just to define it a bit more. Now also on this upper lip, there's supposed to be a ridge running down this edge loop, but because we subdivided it, it's smoothed out. So what I'm going to do is just select, let's bring back the wireframe, just select those edges, hit B, for rounding level of 1, click and drag in the viewport, and in vert mode we'll just select that point and that point, go to vertex and join them. And now, see, that's a little bit more defined, but what we can do, pinch them in and we can exaggerate that line. So next we can fill in the mouth. So I'm going to hit shift tab and we'll come under here in an edge mode, we'll just select two edges there and hit the up arrow, then hit Z, click and drag in the viewport, just bring it down slightly, and then we'll move it across on the X, and then we just need to weld the corners. So in vert mode, you just select those 2 points and join. So with that row of polygons in place, we can now double click on an edge and select an edge loop right round the mouth. So then we hold down control and we can deselect those 8 edges, then turn symmetry off, go to duplicate, run the bridge tool and have 2 segments, drop the tool, and in vert mode we can just select 4 points and hit P to create a polygon. Do the same here, and in edge mode we can double click on an edge to select the edge loop and hit P. That just closes those 2 gaps. Then if we go back to a polygon mode, select 2 polygons, hit the up arrow and select all of those polygons that are inside the mouth. We can now hit B for bevel, click in the viewport, hit R to scale, and we can just scale those in, and then if we hit W we can move those back, then hit B again, click in the viewport, hit R, scale it in and move it back, and gradually builds the cavity for the mouth. So with element move I've just pushed those polygons back. You don't have to go too far, just enough to create the void of the mouth. So to finish the head, we've just got to create the eye. Now fish eyes are very different to human eyes. If you look at this piece of reference, you can see that they're very flat at the front, they have a spherical lens, and there's also a piece of skin that sits over the front of it. So what we need to do, without getting too detailed, is to try and recreate this. So we'll start from the outside in by defining the layer of skin that sits over the front of the eye. So I'm going to hit Shift Tab and in Edge Mode, double click to select the edge loop. Now we need to make sure this is flat, so I'm going to go to a Selection Action Center, hit the R key and then zero out the Z channel, hit W and then we'll just move that back slightly, drop the tool and then hit P to create a polygon. Then go to Polygon Mode, hit B, click in the viewport and grab the red handle and we'll inset it once, hold down Shift and click in the viewport and we'll inset it again. Hold down Shift, click in the viewport, set it slightly, then drop the tool, go to Polygon, Reduce and Collapse. Then to make sure this is all quads, we'll go back to Edge Mode and we'll select every other edge around that central polygon and then hit Backspace to remove them. So now we need to make this area convex. So I'm going to select the polygons in the middle, hold down Shift and hit the up arrow. To expand the selection, hit W and we'll move it out. Again, it doesn't have to be that far. Then hold down Shift and the down arrow to reduce the selection. Move that out. And then invert mode, select the point in the middle and move that out slightly. Now if we hit Shift Tab, you can see how the edge of the eye smooths out too much. So hit Shift Tab again, go to Edge, Add Loop, and we'll just put a new edge in there quite close to the edge of the eye. And now when we hit Shift Tab, that edge is much more defined. So now we can create the eye itself. So we'll select those polygons, Control C to copy, go to a new mesh layer and Control V to paste. Now we just need to push this below the surface. So go to Deform, Push, click in the viewport and move that back slightly. So now we need to create the other side of the eye. So hit Shift Tab, go to Basic and we're going to run the Thicken tool, click in the viewport, grab the blue handle and move it back. Drop a tool and select those polygons, hit R, scale them out, and then 0 is the Z channel. And move that one, hold down Shift and the down arrow to reduce the selection, and we can move this back until it creates more of a sphere shape. So that's the cornea defined. Now we need to create the iris. So select the eye, Control C to copy, we'll go to a new mesh layer and Control V to paste. Again we'll go to the Deform tab, run the Push tool, click in the viewport and we'll sit that just behind the previous layer. So the front of the iris needs to be pushed back and of course there needs to be a hole in the middle. So let's select those polygons in the middle and hit Delete. That creates the hole. Then if we hit Shift Tab and in Edge Mode we can just select these edges and just move them back. So we're flattening that section off. Now this has to have some internal geometry, so if you go to the Basic tab, run the Thicken tool, click in the viewport and offset it, then hit Shift Tab. So the final part of the eye is the lens, and we can create this just with the primitive sphere. So let's go to right hand view. I'm going to run the sphere primitive, make sure the sphere mode is set to quad ball and the subdivision level is 3. Hold down Control and drag out the sphere in the viewport. And if you go back to the perspective view, you can see that because we've got symmetry on, it's created the sphere symmetrically. So we just need to position this so it's sitting inside that hole. Drop a tool, select the spheres, go to a Selection Action Center, and we can just rotate it to line it up with the hole. looks about right. So when you're happy with that, Control X to cut, go to a new mesh layer and Control V to paste, and then we need to hide everything apart from the lens and the iris. Go to the iris layer, select two polygons inside the hole and hit L to select loop, hit R, make sure you're in a selection action center, scale them out, then go to snapping in tool properties and run a background constraint and make sure the constraint type is set to vector, and then with the planar transform handle just scale it back down and it'll stick to the sphere. So spacebar to drop the tool and then escape to remove the background constraint. Then we can go to this layer, Control X to cut, and we'll paste it back into there. And then if we select the sphere and then select two polygons inside the hole and hit L, then hit R, we can then scale and shape the lens. So when you're happy with your eye, just need to unhide these two layers and we need to cut and paste everything into one layer. So I'm going to select these two layers, Control X to cut, go into the main fish layer and Control V to paste. I'll just check that they're in there. So just to finish off the head, there's one thing I want to change. If you come to the top of the head, you'll notice here that I've got a polygon that straddles the center line. Now ultimately I'm going to want to paint the fish, and if I want to use symmetry when I paint, this polygon is going to cause a real problem. So what I need to do is restructure this so that this center line is continuous. So to fix this, hit Shift Tab, run Edge Slice, and we'll bring an edge down the center line, hold down Shift and bring an edge from that point to there, drop the tool, then select those two edges and hit Backspace, then run Edge Slice again and bring an edge from halfway along this edge to the center line. So now we can move on to the fins. Now from an animation point of view, the fins are going to probably be one of the most dynamic parts of the model. So we need to model them so they're going to be easy to animate and weight. So let's take a closer look at the fins. So let's bring back our backdrop item and then we'll go to the right hand view. Now the fins fall into two different categories. We have soft fins and spiny fins. Now the soft fins are this soft dorsal fin on the top, the tail, the anal fin, the pelvic fin, and finally the pectoral fin. Now the feature of these fins, although they contain spines, is they move in a very soft way, almost like material. Now because of the complexity of this movement, we want to try and keep the geometry as simple as possible, because if we tried to model every single one of these spines, not only would we have a very heavy model, but weighting it would be a nightmare. So what we're going to do is keep the geometry simple and create the spines with a displacement map. But when it comes to this main dorsal fin, we can actually model the whole thing, and this is for two reasons. First of all, there's only a few spines, and also those spines are intrinsic to its shape. And secondly, its movement is limited to the fin folding down to the body. So let's start with this soft dorsal fin. So I'm going to turn symmetry on the X, hit Shift Tab, and then in polygon mode I'm just going to select all the polygons along the top that relate to that soft dorsal fin. I'm going to hit B for bevel, click in the viewport, and I'm just going to use tool properties here to inset that. Hold down Shift, click in the viewport, then I'm going to hit W for the move tool and we'll just move that out. Then if I hit R, I can grab the Z handle and scale it and move it so it's the right shape. So now we can do the same for the bottom. So select the polygons, hit B, click in the viewport, inset it, shift click, W, move and scale. So if you come to the perspective view, you can see the shape of these fins is all wrong. They're far too thick. So select the polygons, turn symmetry off, hit R for the scale tool, and we'll just scale those in so the base of the fin is the correct width. Now I've been lucky here in that there's a kind of natural taper from the front to the back, but the polygons on the tip are far too thick. So I'm going to drop the scale tool and just select those polygons, hit R again, and we'll scale those. So now I need some edges running across this fin. So in polygon mode, I'm going to select two polygons, hit Alt C for loop slice, have the count on 3 and the mode on uniform, and click in the viewport. So with that geometry in place, we can now go back to the right hand view, an element move, and now we can tweak the shape of this fin so it matches the reference image perfectly. So I've repeated those steps for the anal fin, and now we can model the pectoral fin. So I'm going to hit Shift Tab, we'll bring back our reference and go to the right hand view. Now the pectoral fin in the reference is folded back along the body and closed up. We're actually going to model it so it's pointing out from the body and fanned out more, but we can use this as a starting point. So let's go to a new mesh item and we'll turn symmetry off. Now I want to join this fin to these 4 polygons on the shoulder that we modelled on the body. So I need to define this fin initially with just 4 polygons. So I'm going to run the pen tool with make quads active, and we'll click once, twice, 3 times to create a polygon. So there's 1 polygon, 2 polygons, 3, and finally 4. Now I want to fan this out, so I'm going to use element move and just create the shape that I want. So when you've done that, drop the tool, select 2 polygons, hit Alt C, and this time we'll have a count of 4, keep the mode on uniform, and click in the viewport. So if I hit Tab, I think that the corners of this fin are rounding off too much. So what I'm going to do is add another 2 edges into it, and this will mean I'll have to add 2 edges into the body of the fish, but 2 edges is manageable. So I'll hit Tab again, so I'm going to go to Edge, Add Loop, and add an edge in there, hold down Shift, and add an edge in there. So if I hit Tab now, I think the shape of that fin is much better. Okay, so let's hide the background image and also the fish. Go to the perspective view, and now we need to thicken this. So in the basic tab, we'll run the thicken tool, click in the viewport, and move it back with the blue handle. Drop a tool and deselect the polygons, then go to a linear fall off and drag from the base of the fin to the tip of the fin. You might want to adjust it slightly that way. Hit R and scale it in. Now upon reflection, I think these polygons are far too big. We're going to need another edge in there. So I'm going to go to edge mode, double click on the central edge, hit B, and with a rounding level of 0, we'll just bevel that out. Then select this edge, hit E, and we'll rotate that, and also move it. And then we can do the same for this one. So now we need to join this to the body. So let's bring the fish back, hit W, and we'll move it out and rotate it and move it into position. And then at that point we can mirror it. So duplicate, mirror, go to an origin action center and click in the viewport. So at the moment these fins are totally flat. So just to add a little bit of curve, I'm going to run a cylinder fall off, drag out the cylinder, hit W, and we'll just pull those fins forward slightly. Spacebar, drop tool and escape to remove the fall off, and then we can cut those fins into the fish layer. So now we have to figure out how to join them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to move the top of this shoulder up by 1 row of polygons. So I'm going to run edge slice, bring an edge from there to there, drop a tool, and in edge mode I'll just remove that edge, run edge slice again, put that one in there, then hit T for element move, and then we can just refine that shape a little bit. So next we need to move the bottom half of this shoulder backwards to make the whole thing more vertical. So again with element move we'll just pull all of this geometry over. So pulling that back has stretched the topology in this area, so we need to reorganize it. I'm going to start by redirecting the termination point for this shoulder. So I'm going to select that edge and hit backspace to remove it, run edge slice, and we'll bring an edge from there to there. Then hold down shift, and I'm going to bring an edge from there right across to the center line, and then we can bring another edge from there to there, drop a tool, and then we can remove that edge and also that edge. Then we can select these edges, hit backspace, and also this one and hit backspace, and then if we double click on that, I just want to select those three edges, go to edge and run slide. We'll just bring that down to even it up, and we can do the same here. We can now fill this area by selecting the polygons all the way up to there, which is would be the top of the fin. Hit B, click in the viewport, and just inset it. Drop the tool, hit T, and now we can just even all of this up. So when you've done that, you'll notice that the bottom of that shoulder isn't very satisfactory. If I hit Shift Tab, you can see it's not really doing anything. So I'm going to select that edge, hit V to spin the edge, and we get this point, and then we can select two edges and hit backspace. So at the moment I've got this area of 5 polygons, but I need it to be 7 if I'm going to attach the fin smoothly. So to add 2 more edges in, I'm going to select 2 polygons, hit the up arrow, so I've selected just behind the fin, come down 2, and then go back into the gill, hit Alt C for loop slice, mode on uniform to count on 1, then check slice selected and also keep quads, and then click in the viewport. So I've smoothed all those new edges out with element move, and now we can bridge it. So I'm going to select 7 there, hold down shift and select 7 there, go to duplicate and run bridge. Now the polygon structure of the pelvic fin is going to have to be slightly different to the other fins, and that's because the base of the fin is much smaller than the rest of it. So go to the side view and bring back your reference image, run the pen tool with make quads active, and we want to draw out 5 polygons from the base of the fin to the tip. And obviously at the moment it's in its folded position, so drop the tool, hit E, click at the base of the fin and rotate that around. Hit W and just move it so it's below the main body of the fish. So then run the pen tool again, click and move the point so it snaps to that point, and we want to create another row of polygons above that. Then hold down shift and snap a point to there and then to there, and then we need to bring this up and around. So we need to 1, 2, 3, 4. It needs to kind of curve around at the top. 5, 6, 7, and then finally 8, but we want this point to snap to there. So now we just need to fill this hole with quads, so hold down shift again, snap that point to there, and to there, hold down shift again, bring a polygon right across to there, bring that to there, and then finally fill that gap. So then we can go to the perspective view, let's hide the reference image, run the thicken tool, click in the viewport, and bring it back with the blue handle, and now we need to create the taper. So run a linear fall off. First of all, we'll bring the taper down from the base of the fin to the tip, hit R and we'll scale it, drop the tool and then move the fall off so it goes from the front of the fin to the back, and then scale it again. So now we need to think about where this is going to be positioned. So hit W, I'm just going to move it over, and it needs to sit around about there. So I'm just going to rotate it around, move it out, that looks about right. So now we need another fin, so go to duplicate, mirror, origin action center, click in the viewport, and then we need to get these all into the same layer, so Control X to cut, Ctrl V to paste. So to join them, go to edge mode, turn symmetry on the X. First of all, we need to select that edge, hit W and move it back to there, and then we can select that edge and move that back slightly too. Then we go to polygon mode, we can select these polygons on the body of the fish, hit B, click in the viewport and inset them, drop the tool, and now we can select those 3 polygons, hold down shift and select those 3 polygons, and then we can run bridge. So for the spiny dorsal fin, we're actually going to model each spine and then bridge between them. So go to the side view, bring back your reference image, let's go to a new layer. We'll start by creating a single spine, so we'll run the pen tool, get the base, and we'll create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons. So then hide the backdrop item, go to the perspective view. Now if you hit Shift X, that runs the polygon extrude tool. Click in the viewport and just move it back on the X to create the thickness at the base of the spine, and we want to increase the sides value to 2, that creates an edge in the middle. Then we want to create a taper, so run a linear fall off, drag from the base to the tip, hit R, scale it in, drop the tool, escape to remove the fall off, and then in edge mode, double click on that edge loop, go to deform and run the push tool, and just push that out slightly to make the whole thing more rounded. And then in polygon mode we can delete the 2 polygons at the base. So now we just need to create all the other spines. So bring back the reference image, we'll go back to the right hand view. All we need to do is double click on that spine to select it, Control C, Control V to copy and paste it, hit W, we'll move it along, hit R, click at the base of the spine, and with the planar transform handles we'll just scale that down and do the same thing for each spine. Now you'll need to shape some of them so they match the reference image. For example, this spine needs to be straightened. To do that we can just run the bend tool, click at the point it needs to be straightened, put the little blue handle at the tip, and then we can just rotate that around. Then drop the tool, R, click at the base and scale it up. So when you finish that, we now need to bridge between the spines. So I'm just going to do this one as an example. So I'm going to select 4 edges on there and 4 edges on there. Obviously how many edges you select is going to be different depending on each spine because the shape between them is slightly different. So with those edges selected, we'll hide the backdrop item, go to the perspective view, and now we need to create polygons from those edges. So hit B with a rounding level of 0, click and drag to create a very small row of polygons, drop the tool, then if you hold down Alt you can see that the mode buttons change to convert. So I want to change this edge selection to a poly selection. So click on that button. Now becomes a poly selection, and then we can go to the duplicate tab and run the bridge tool, and make sure that the segments is set to 2. So if you hit Shift Tab now, you can see we can get this weird thing happening at the bottom. That's because we've got 2 polygons there. So just select them and hit Delete. Shift Tab again, and we'll just go to the right hand view, bring back our reference image, and we'll go to a wireframe view, then hit Element Move, and we can just grab this edge and shape the bridge. So when you've finished it, it should look something like this. Now unfortunately, because of the way we've modeled this, we haven't modeled it in symmetry. So we go to Basic, set it selected on the X. If we turn symmetry on the X and select something, you can see it's still not symmetrical. So to fix that, in edge mode, I'm just going to double click on this central edge loop, go vertex, set position, 0 on the X, click in the viewport, then I'm going to go to edge, split, go to polygon mode, select this side and hit delete, then go to duplicate, mirror, origin action center, click in the viewport, the axis on X, and now if we turn symmetry on the X, everything is fixed. So next we need to block in these areas at the base of all the spines. So in edge mode I'm going to select two edges, hit Z for edge extend, click in the viewport and we'll just bring that out. And if we go to polygon and run the topology pen, we can just snap those points, and we need to do that all the way along. So now we have to join this to the main body of the fish. So we'll go into that layer, let's select all of these polygons along the top of the body, hit B, click in the viewport and bevel those in, drop a tool, turn symmetry off, hit R, and then we can just scale that to make them just slightly bigger than the width of the fin. So next I want to make sure that each of these edges is sitting in the middle like that, so it matches this edge in the fin. So I'm just using element move to do this. Now at the back of the fin we've got a problem because this edge needs to flow right back into this soft dorsal fin. So let's run edge slice. I want to bring an edge from that point across there and then to the start of the soft dorsal fin. And then in edge mode I'm going to select those edges and hit backspace. Now we've got an end gone, but that's not a problem because go to edge and add loop, make sure preserve curvature is on, and we can just place a new edge in there. Go back to edge slice, we can slice across like that. Now if you find that this is bunching up a little bit, you can just select this edge. Let's just select from there, go down the up arrow, and then we can go to edge, slide, and we just slide that through. And we can do the same on the other side. So now we need to go along this section, beveling them. So I'm just going to select two polygons, B, click in the viewport, and inset it. I'll hold down shift and select those four polygons and hit delete. Then select these two, B, click in the viewport, inset. You might want to scale it to match it to the size of the base of that spine. Then select those polygons and hit delete, and so on all the way along that fin. Then you can cut that fin into that layer, run the topology pen, and now with symmetry on you can weld all of this together. So with the fin attached, that's the modelling complete. But before we move on, we've just got to do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, we want to make sure that the model is perfectly symmetrical. So with symmetry on the X, go to geometry, symmetry tool, and click in the viewport. And if you see any yellow squares in the viewport, you'll know it's not symmetrical. So just click and drag in the viewport and that will fix it. I'm OK. And secondly, go to geometry and run mesh cleanup. And this will just get rid of any bad pieces of geometry that are left over in the model. We also need to make sure that the fish is the correct scale, so I'll turn symmetry off, go snaps and precision, absolute scaling. At the moment it's 8 meters long, but I know an average rockfish is about 600 millimeters long, so I'll just type in 600 millimeters and hit uniform scale. I'll just go to center selected all, and I go to my right hand view, hit W, and then we can just position it. And just to finish off, we can delete the sculpt, so select that mesh layer, right click and delete. We can delete any empty mesh items that are in the scene, and we can also delete the backdrop item. And finally we can click and hold on the fish item and call it rockfish.